One night, I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep. The room was completely dark and everything was quiet. No TV, no fan, nothing. Just that heavy kind of silence you only really notice when you're trying to drift off. I had just closed my eyes when I heard it, right next to my head, maybe just a few inches away, snoring. But it wasn't real snoring. It sounded fake, like someone trying to mimic snoring. Slow, exaggerated breaths, not natural at all. It was almost playful, like whatever was making the noise wanted me to know it was there. I froze. I didn't move. I just lay there, wide-eyed, listening to it. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. After a few seconds, the sound just stopped. No footsteps, no shifting. Just silence again, like it had never happened. I finally worked up the nerve to turn on the light. Nothing was there, of course. No one else was even in the house at the time. I never heard it again, but I still think about it. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I was fully awake. Whatever it was, it wanted to mess with me, and it knew exactly how to do it. My mother was gifted an antique framed photograph of a small child, which we put up in the hallway. The child in the photo seemed to follow you with her eyes. We had a door in the hallway with glass panels leading to the living room. While sitting in the living room, we all saw a small child walking through the hallway from the corner of our eyes multiple times a day. This practice went on and became kind of normal. People outside of our family saw it as well while staying over. My sister came upstairs one night pale as a ghost and upset, saying she had her hand grabbed by a little girl, and she rested her body against her while she sat next to the Christmas tree downstairs. She said she felt awfully ill and drained after the encounter. I've seen a little girl behind me while I was on the webcam one night. A friend suddenly asked me who the girl was behind me on the screen. I saw her as well on screen, but when I turned around, there was nobody there. Activity died down after we got rid of the photo in the hallway. This happened when I was home alone one afternoon. I was about to head out to meet a friend who lived just across the street. Nothing felt off, just a normal day. I locked the door behind me and started walking across when I saw her already standing on the sidewalk, looking up at my house. She was waving. It took me a second to realize she wasn't waving at me. She was waving at my brother's bedroom window. I stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" She looked at me kind of confused and said, "I was waving to your brother. He's at the window." I just stared at her for a second and told her, "I'm home alone. He's not even here." The change in her face was instant. She got really quiet and pale and just stared up at the window again. Then she said, "No." He was right there. He was smiling and waving at me. I didn't know what to say. She swore up and down that she saw him clearly. Same shirt he always wears, same haircut. Just standing in the window, waving like everything was normal. I went back inside right after and checked the room. It was empty. Lights off. Window closed. Nothing unusual, but it didn't feel right. She never brought it up again, and I didn't either. But every time I pass that window now, I can't help but glance up, just in case someone's standing there watching. The stairs in my house are ridiculously loud. Anyone who's ever been over knows that. You can't go up or down without them creaking and groaning under your weight. It's just one of those things I've gotten used to. That night, I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep, and I heard them creaking again. Just a few slow steps. I figured it was probably the wood settling or something. I was home alone, but I've heard stranger sounds at night. I didn't think much of it and ended up falling asleep. But the dream I had was intense. I was on those same stairs, and something was chasing me. Something fast, right on my heels. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it getting closer with every step I took. I remember the sound of the stairs in the dream matched perfectly with how they sound in real life. Every groan and creak exactly the same. I jolted awake after that, heart racing. I was lying on my side, facing the wall. My bed is right up against it, so I couldn't see anything behind me. I didn't move right away. I was still half in the dream, half out of it. And then I heard it, behind me. Not close, but not far either. Just loud enough to feel like it was in the same room, but tucked into the corner. 5 deep, heavy breaths. Each one was slow and drawn out, like whatever it was had been running and was trying to catch its breath. As soon as the 5th breath finished, I turned over fast, expecting to see something. But there was nothing. Just my dark room. The silence felt heavier than usual, like it was pressing in from every corner. I didn't sleep again that night. And now, every time I hear those stairs creak, even just once, I wonder if I'm about to have another dream like that. Or worse, wake up and hear those breaths again. It happened on one of those quiet afternoons when you're not really expecting anything strange. I was just sitting on the couch, watching TV like usual. There was a mirror across the room, angled just enough that I could see the hallway out of the corner of my eye. At one point, I glanced at the mirror without thinking, and I saw my little brother standing there, just standing in the hallway, like he was watching me. I didn't panic. My first instinct was just to turn and look at him directly. But the second I did, he was gone. The hallway was completely empty, no sound, just that weird stillness that suddenly feels too quiet. I figured, maybe I imagined it. The lighting, the angle, mirrors play tricks, right? I tried to shake it off and went back to watching TV. A few hours later, I was in the kitchen when I heard my brother's voice, clear as day, shouting from somewhere in the house. Just one word, "Mummy." It wasn't muffled or distant. It sounded like he was right around the corner. I dropped what I was doing and ran through the house, calling out to him. Checked every room, even the closets. Nothing. The house was completely empty, just like before. I was definitely still home alone. I called him right after, thinking maybe he came home early or something. But when he picked up, he told me he was still at his dad's house. He hadn't been home at all. That was the part that really got to me. Hearing his voice so clearly, seeing him in the mirror, and knowing he couldn't have been there. I don't know what it was. Maybe something mimicking him, or maybe just the house playing tricks. But I haven't trusted that mirror since. Around 1 a.m., a ghostly white hand opened the door to my bedroom, waking me up. The hand was quite high off the ground, which was odd because my husband wasn't home, and the only other person in the house was my 2-year-old son. I called out to my son, but there was no answer. I got out of bed and saw no one in the hall. I switched on the hallway light and noticed smoke coming from my son's room at the other end of the hallway. I rushed over to his room and saw that he was fast asleep and still neatly tucked in under his blankets. His bed lamp was on as usual, and his bedroom window curtain had somehow ended up inside the bed lamp, which was open at the top, and the curtain had begun to smolder, which was responsible for the smoke. It looked like it was about to catch fire at any moment. I removed the curtain from the bed lamp and potentially saved our home from burning down, and my son from getting killed. I still don't know whose hand opened my bedroom door. I like to think that it was a guardian angel, but I spoke with some people at our church, and they warned me that there are no guardian angels, and it was most likely an evil presence trying to win my favor. The church formed a prayer group to pray for our home to banish whatever malevolent presence was inside of it, and since then, we've never had any other supernatural incidents. One evening, my sister and I were in the kitchen washing dishes. It was just the two of us at home. No one else was around. The house was quiet, apart from the sound of running water and the clinking of plates. Out of nowhere, we both heard this soft whistling. It wasn't coming from outside or the TV, just this low, steady whistle, like someone standing right behind us. We both stopped immediately and looked at each other. Then, we heard what sounded like light footsteps, or something shifting its weight on the floorboards right behind us, like someone was sneaking around the kitchen, just out of view. We turned around, but there was no one there. No open windows, no movement, just an empty, quiet kitchen behind us. It happened more than once over the span of a few minutes. That same whistling, that same sound of something pacing behind us, stopping when we turned. We didn't say much after that, just finished the dishes quickly and left the room. Whatever it was, it didn't feel like it wanted to be seen, just heard. I used to live in an old 70s trailer. It was horrible. A lot of creepy things happened there, but one incident was kind of cute in retrospect. One night, I fell asleep early. After about an hour, I was woken up by a tiny meow in my left ear. It made me remember that I'd forgotten to feed my cat, Nana, her dinner. I reached up to pet and reassure her, but all I felt was the wall. I was confused, so I sat up and looked around. Nana was nowhere in the room. I called out to her, and eventually she came down the hall to my bedroom. I was weirded out, and it grew stranger the more I thought about it. I'd been lying on the very edge of my bed, so close to the edge that if I rolled over anymore, I'd fall off. So my cat couldn't have been behind me. I wouldn't have been able to move my arm if she'd been on top of it. My pillow was up against the wall, so she couldn't have been above my head. I would have seen her, and possibly felt her fur on my face if she'd been on the other side of the bed, beside me. To top it all off, that meow was far too high-pitched. It sounded nothing like Nana. I made my way into the kitchen, fed Nana, went back to bed, and never heard that tiny meow again. I suppose I didn't need to, though. No pet of mine has ever missed a meal since. For a while, we had this weird issue with the main circuit breaker. It would trip randomly, no warning, no obvious reason. Everything would suddenly go dark, and when my mum went to reset it, the switch just wouldn't budge. It wasn't like the usual power cut. The breaker felt like it was being physically held down. She'd try again and again, pressing hard, but nothing. Then, out of nowhere, it would work again, like nothing had happened. This didn't happen just once. It happened multiple times over a few weeks. Always random, and always when no one else was doing anything unusual. Just normal daily stuff. And then total blackout. One evening it happened again, and my mum just snapped. She marched over to the fuse box and started yelling, like really yelling. She was furious, shouting at whatever was messing with the electrics to get the fuck out of the house. It wasn't even directed at a person, more like at the air, at the thing she felt was behind it. Strangely enough, after that outburst, it stopped. The breaker never tripped like that again. No more blackouts. It was like whatever was doing it had been told off and finally listened. Around the time we started talking about putting our elderly cat to sleep, his health had really started to decline. I began noticing something strange around the house. It started with small movements. Just out of the corner of my eye, I'd see a shadow, low to the ground, slipping through doorways or darting past the edge of the hallway, always about the size of a cat. At night, I'd sometimes catch a brief glint, like the reflection of cat eyes in the dark. But when I looked directly at it, there was nothing there. No sound, no pause on the floor, just that flicker of movement and the feeling that something had just been there. What made it even stranger was that we used to have 2 cats, brothers. One had gone missing years ago, long before our elderly cat started getting sick. We never found out what happened to him. The strange sightings continued right up until the day we had our old cat euthanized. It was quiet and peaceful. We brought his ashes home a few days later and placed them in the living room. After that, the shadow stopped appearing. No more eye glints, no more shapes in the hallway. I genuinely believe the shadow I kept seeing was his brother, waiting for him to come home one last time. It happened about 5 years ago. I woke up every night at 4 a.m. sharp and had nightmares every night. When I looked around, I would have a strong feeling of being watched. Once I saw a man with a black shirt and a hood over his head, staring at the ground in the middle of my room. I've seen strange things, so I just assumed he was a visitor and asked him to leave. Well, he didn't. I complained to my mum about this, and we did research. We found him. He died near my house. I won't be using his actual name here for privacy, so let's call him James. He got killed while drunk driving a few years back. When I saw the picture, I almost threw up and felt something cold touching my neck. We went to the place where it happened, a 5-minute drive, and again, I felt a cold hand squeezing the back of my neck. He followed me everywhere. When I was getting ready to go to bed, stuff would actually fly out of my cabinets. Lights would flicker, and I would suffer from insomnia like never before. Eventually, we've had enough and called in a friend who is a medium. He got rid of him, and since then, I have never seen him again. I hope he found peace. And another weird thing that happened to me once, I think last year. My door handle went down around 11 p.m, and it opened very slowly. So I said, "Ma, I'm awake. You can come in." But no reply. So I said, "Ma?" Nothing. I got up, snatched my protective charms from my nightstand, and walked out of my room. No one. I called downstairs. "Ma, were you in my room just now?" She said, "No, I and Dad have been downstairs the entire time. Why?" So I explained, but they said it couldn't have been them. So I just went back to sleep, sealing my room another 10 extra times. I've always had spooky things happen around me, no matter where I live. The activity is relatively light. I can go weeks or months with nothing. But every so often, something will happen that I can't explain. Besides the ghost did it. Objects moving, doors closing, a painting falling off a wall at an angle that was not natural, and the stove turning on by itself when I was standing next to it. A radio also turned on in front of me too. When my sister was staying here months ago, she said her daughter's toys were moved around, and one day she came home to all her bathroom cupboards opened. Sometimes I hear noises floating around my bathroom or room too. One night a while back, I was lying in bed trying to sleep. The house was silent. My door was cracked open. With no warning, I hear a rush of literal footsteps sprinting down the hall to my room, and then my door is hurled open forcefully. No animals or people came in. They were already on my bed. It's been fun. And that's only this particular house. I've had more stories in past places I've lived in. Honestly, I'm not freaked out. I'm fascinated by it and wish I had more frequent activity.